Warren Edward Buffett. He is an American business magnate, investor, and philanthropist. He is currently the chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He is one of the most successful investors in the world and has a net worth of over $110 billion as of January 2023, making him the world's fourth wealthiest person. Buffett displayed an interest in business and investing at a young age. He was inspired by a book he borrowed from the Omaha Public Library at age 7, 1,000 Ways to Make $1,000. In one of his first business ventures, Buffett sold chewing gum, Coca-Cola, and weekly magazines door to door. He worked in his grandfather's grocery store. While still in high school, he made money delivering newspapers. At 15, Warren made more than $175 monthly delivering Washington Post newspapers. He bought the land when he was 14 years old with $1,200 of his savings. By the time he finished college, Buffett had accumulated $9,800 in savings. Buffett worked from 1951 to 1954 at Buffett Falk & Company as an investment salesman, from 1954 to 1956 at Graham Newman Corp., and from 1970 as chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Inc. In 1961, Buffett revealed that 35% of the partnership's assets were invested in the Sanborn Map Company. He explained that Sanborn stock sold for only $45 per share in 1958. Buffett eventually purchased 23% of the company. Buffett had reaped a 50% return on investment in just 2 years. In 1962, Buffett became a millionaire because of his partnerships, which in January 1962 had an excess of $7,178,500, of which over $1,025,000 belonged to Buffett. He began buying shares in Berkshire at $7.60 per share. In 1979, Berkshire began to acquire stock in ABC. Capital Cities announced a $3.5 billion purchase of ABC on March 18. In 1988, Buffett began buying the Coca-Cola Company stock, eventually purchasing up to 7% of the company for $1.02 billion. It would turn out to be one of Berkshire's most lucrative investments and one which it still holds. Buffett became a billionaire when Berkshire Hathaway began selling Class A shares on May 29, 1990. With the market closing at $7,175 a share. In 2008, Buffett became the richest person in the world, with a total net worth estimated at $62 billion by Forbes, overtaking Bill Gates, who had been number 1 on the Forbes list for 13 consecutive years. In February 2009, Buffett sold some Procter & Gamble Company and Johnson & Johnson shares from his personal portfolio. On August 14, 2014, the price of Berkshire Hathaway's shares hit $200,000 a share for the first time, capitalizing the company at $328 billion. While Buffett had given away much of his stock to charities by this time, he still held 321,000 shares worth $64.2 billion. Goldman Sachs was given Federal Reserve approval to buy back Berkshire's preferred stock in Goldman. Buffett had been reluctant to give up the stock, which averaged $1.4 million in dividends per day. In November 2011, it was announced that over the course of the previous 8 months, Buffett had bought 64 million shares of IBM stock, worth around $11 billion. After the difficulties of the economic crisis, Buffett managed to bring its company back to its pre-recession standards. In Q2 2014, Berkshire Hathaway made $6.4 billion in net profit, the most it had ever made in a 3-month period. He also owned a vacation home in Laguna Beach, California, which he purchased for $150,000 in 1971. He sold it for $7.5 million in 2018. In 2007, he auctioned a luncheon with himself that raised a final bid of $650,100 for the Glide Foundation. Later auctions raised $2.1 million and $3.5 million. The winners traditionally dine with Buffett at New York's Smith & Wollensky Steak House. In November 2022, Warren Buffett made a donation of $750 million in Berkshire Hathaway shares to 4 charitable foundations run by his children.